Okay. This week, let me see. Okay, so we're going to be taking a look at Unit 7 and Tutorial 7. Again, Chapter 7, Computer Networks and Cloud Computing. Go off, read the chapter. I'll put the test out there this morning. And it'll be due a week from when I put it out. So somebody was thinking that they were due like on Sunday or something, and no, I wouldn't do that. They're I put them out right after we cover the material in class, and then you have the week to work on them. The topic out of tutorial 7 is designing web form, and this is what we'll focus on a little bit, and then also JavaScript. The web form and JavaScript go hand in hand. Now I gave you an introduction to that last week. Now here I have my JavaScript program, and I got my function, and let's see. Down here was our inputs, and we had a name num1, num2. Remember, we clicked add nums. That then ran this function up here, which these two lines of code here, document.getElementById num1.value, that retrieves whatever's put in that blank. The parseInt converts it to an integer and then assigns it to n1. And this says the same thing for n2. Then remember, we add these together and then we write it back out, referring to answer, which is a item down here. Okay. How it looked was like this right here. Well, this is the start of a web form. A web form is where you bring in information, and we're going to be focusing on this class with just clicking the button here and doing JavaScript. And that's what you do in real life too. But then the next part of it is that it actually submits it to a server. For example, if I'm ordering something and I fill in the blanks and I click the button that says order, then it'll submit my order. So when I say it submits an order, it passes all this information into a computer program running on a server somewhere. That could be PHP, could be ASP.NET, Python. There's a lot of different variations it could be, but this information is passed in as a parameter. Okay, now remember, if you click the three dots over here, we can go to More Tools and Developer Tools, and I showed you this a little bit. I messed up on a problem, not on purpose, but it was good because it showed it. Now I'm gonna show you a little bit more about the this feature over here. Now, if you don't see your code here, you click this to bring it up, and you have to be under Sources. Now, here's my N1. If I click to the left of it, it makes that blue. This is referred to as a breakpoint. Okay, so now if I come over here and I put in 5 and 1 and I click my add button, what it does, it breaks out of the program and stops right there. It says, hey, I'm waiting for you to do something. Now, I couldn't tell you what most of this is. You don't need to know it. But up here, if you see where my mouse is, these are important items. This one right here is our step. What that does is it runs that line of code and goes to the next one. So if I click that, it just ran that line of code. And you might be saying, well, okay, that's nice, but how beneficial is that? Well, if you put your mouse over N1 now, that'll tell you what the value of it is. So that says it's 5. Now if I click that again, it'll run that line of code. If I put my mouse over it, that'll tell you what that is. So that's 1. And then if I click it again, runs that line of code, put my mouse over it, 6. So you can watch progression as it's going down through there. If I do it again, then you see our answer went actually out here. Now there's one over here to the far left says resume script execution. So if I click that, then it just continues running my code. So this is the way you can debug your programs. Now to get rid of a breakpoint, you can click over here and get that off. I helped one person with JavaScript this week, and they weren't getting an error. It just wasn't working. And this is where I would have went to if I didn't spot the issue. Oftentimes I'll have people bring it up, and I'll look to see if I can spot what's going on. And if I can, I just do it that way. But if I can't, then I'll come here and do this debugging. Now, I'm sure somewhere here. Okay, put that there, click there. I'm sure somewhere in here is the actual variables. You can see there's a lot of different options here. Oh, right there. Well, oh, that's values. That's what their values are equal to there. Global. That's a lot. Call stack. What if I can do a watch? Okay, you can click the watch and type in N1, and I'll type in N2, and I'll type in sum. Now you might say, well, they're already equal to that. Well, let me go ahead and run that, and I'll come back over here and I'll put something else in there. 7, 3. Then click add. They're equal to that from the previous run. So now if I step through it, you'll see it them actually change here. That's what watches usually are. So 7, 3. So if you don't like to put your mouse over it to see what the value is, then you can do that. And that's a watch where I did that. And if you want to get rid of one of those, you just click the X to delete that watch expression. Oftentimes they have the variables listed over here somewhere, but I'm not really seeing it, to be honest. Like I say, I'm not a genius at the debugging. I learned the basics, and every good IDE, interactive development environment, every good IDE has this. Visual Studio has this. NetBeans has this. Without this, you're just kind of guessing sometimes. Alerts are nice, but being able to walk through it like that is invaluable. Okay, enough about that. Okay, designing a web form. And again, I'm not going to cover every piece here. I'm going to just in general talk about this. This is the idea, and this will go through how to create a nice looking one, not what I've been showing you. But this is where they'll enter in the blanks. There's no buttons to push. Though I have seen you can program like when your mouse leaves this. There's one college I taught at way back when, and you had to report your data at the end of the semester on student outcomes. And you go to the screen and you type it in, but there was no button to save. It unnerved me so much. Even though I knew that it was probably programmed off of the on leave or something off of the blank that automatically saved it. It just bothered me. So things you have to keep in mind when you're designing. Web form allows user to input data that can be saved and processed in some way. Common way to accept user input allows the creation of interactive websites for user feedback. And that's really the main goal of JavaScript and web forms, talking to servers, is that it's more interactive. Not just a page you read, but a page you can do something with. Whether that's ordering a candle from Yankee Candle, um, or just putting something in Simplify a Fraction. Okay, I talk about the controls, widgets. These are some items here. Input box we looked at already, and you can have a label goes with it. Selection list box. This is a drop down of items, and then you can pick an item from there. Another input box. Spin box. This is like where you can click these arrows on the right hand side and it changes numbers. It goes 1, 2, 3, so forth. Checkbox. You can check that in order to select it. Now, with the checkbox, if you had 3 checkboxes here, you could choose all 3, none, 1, 2, 3. So there's lots of different options. Over here is a calendar control. When you click the plus there, it pops up a little mini calendar, so you can change the month, the year, and visually see that. That's the same as if when you pop this up, how it comes up with a nice calendar. Order type is another selection list box here. And we're going to see how to program all of these and get the information into JavaScript. And these are called option buttons. Radial buttons is what you may have seen it referred to in other programming languages. And with these, yes or no, you can only choose one of these. You can't choose both yes and no. Was your service friendly? Yeah, yes and no. Can't do that. It's either yes or no. And that's the idea of an option button. And then here is where you slide this. This is a slider control. So you can use that to choose the value. Why do you have something like this instead of just type it in? It reduces error because there's no way they can screw it up. So all you can do is slide it. You can't enter anything. And then kind of a free form text box here. That's a text area box where you can put in like a paragraph of information. Okay. This gives the idea here. You put data into your web page. It sends it off to the server. Maybe this is a PHP program, whatever. Feedback is sent back. Maybe it says, hey, your order was submitted. Thank you for your business, so forth. Maybe it sends it back and says, hey, you forgot something. Now, with JavaScript, if they got a lot of errors in inputting their data on the screen, then what happens is this goes out here, comes back, and does this huge cycle. And that's not very efficient. What we'd like to do is to do all of our checks down on the computer to make sure you input things in right. If you put in a zip code, that you put in 5 numbers. If you typed in a phone number, you typed in 7 digits, or if you include area code, more. There was a what was it? Coneheads, I think I watched. And the guy was asking, I don't even know his name, but asking Beldar or whatever his name is, what his social security number was. He's sitting there making it up, and he's saying letters and and so forth, and it was just humorous. But that's the kind of check you do down here. Did they put it in correct? For some reason, on MasterCard and Visa, the format of the number specifically tells them whether it's MasterCard or Visa. You have some sites that ask you which one it is, but then I've been to other sites where you just type it in and it knows that it's a MasterCard or knows it's a Visa. Couldn't tell you how, but these are all different things you could put down on this side before you send it off to the server. Let's see. Web forms are marked using the form element. It's form ID. This is optional if you're not going to send it to a server. Like over here. If I put form in here, and then down here put my /form, the very basic without any parameters. If I save it, and I come over here, refresh this, 2, 1, it still works. So the form is really beneficial that we'll see later on when you're sending it off to the server. So this information will be processed somewhere, stored in a database. And again, it's got an ID equals text and corresponding attributes. That's where you give it a name. ID equals survey. We've seen that with the input. You can have whatever HTML inside the form you want. Now here is the action. Action is equal to URL. I doubt if I can probably spot this. Some of the simpler sites. Let's say I want to order. What do I want to buy? Calculators. Calculator. No, those are big companies. Boy, that's sad. I'm looking around my a tape measure. I got a tape measure on my desk. Tape measure. Tape measure for sale. Granger's probably big. Amazon's definitely big. Surely there's some perfectmeasuringtape.com. That's got to be a pretty rinky-dink place, right? Okay, so let's say I want to order something here. View product. That's interesting. Oh, there. Okay, and I want to add one of those. Add it to my cart. Check out. Okay. Now this is an example of web form. So we got our information. Here's, remember that item we had where we could choose this and then has a drop down? Oh, that's exactly what we did here. Notice here, big text area where I can put a lot of notes. You know, the items you saw over there are kind of standard in what you'd want. This doesn't have any check boxes. Oh, they do. Create an account. It's a checkbox. Ship to a different address. Now, when you click these, there's programming behind them. So see how that makes that visible. Okay. Now, it looks like this is being processed via PayPal, so I probably can't show you the code. But I right-clicked on here and I say View Page Source. And if you try to eyeball it, you're probably never going to find it. Okay. Now here shows an action, and this isn't the put method, but this is a get. But this shows you what it looks like. And then within that form, we have this. Let's see if there's another one. Get. Check out. Now here's a post. And that will actually run this then. And so then there's more to it that's buried in here. But now you see the end of the form, and this is right here, looks like occurs after all this. Nobody in their right mind, by the way, programs this by hand. They're using some kind of tool to build this. Yeah, think how long that would take you to do. You see here we got a script down here, JavaScript. It's doing a global error catcher. So again, it's trying to check it before it sends it off to the server. And this is a JavaScript code I just clicked on. Couldn't tell you what all this is. It's something that they've written. Okay, nothing about that. Action attribute provides the location of the web server. Program processes the form. Method specifies how the browser should send form data to the server. Encrypt type specifies how the form data should, or encode type. It should be encoded as sent to the server. There's gets and posts. Get says tells the browser to append form data to the end of the URL specified in the action attribute. Post is actually considered to be more of the sends the form data in its own separate data stream. Now, what in the world does that mean? You may have seen some programs you run that as you start clicking through it, it starts putting additional information up here at top. This is doing this right here. See how it's tacked on content ID and course ID, and so this is building on a URL information that I've clicked on. And by the way, this is running a program off the server JSP. I don't know what a JSP is. JavaScript page. What is a JSP file? Java server page. I don't think I've ever worked with Java server pages. Okay, excuse me. We've already talked about some of those examples. Again, you can have a script in here to do different items like error checking. Now, field set, this groups fields that share a common purpose. Let's see, legend. Okay, creating input boxes. That's what we did last time. Input name, and then we had type equals type. Remember in ours, we had type is equal to text. Well, there's different ones you can create here. Button. Notice that it's also an input tag, but it's a type called button. There's a checkbox. Checkbox for yes or no or true false responses. So if I come here, do you like Married with Children? Boy, that's bad. Guess I watched a little TV that I couldn't actually think of an example. Input type equals to, and it tells us what? Checkbox. ID equals whatever you want to call it, C box. Save that. Refresh that. And I should have done an enter there, but see how we have a checkbox now. Now, I'm going to go through these different items, and what I'm going to have you do is I'm going to have you create a web form for like ordering. So you can definitely look at ones they have online, but I want you to create your own. Put your own ideas and what do you need to collect and so forth. You can have multiple checkboxes, so I could have one right below that. Do you like Breaking Bad? Input type equals to checkbox. ID equals Breaking Bad box. Coming weeks, we're going to see that you can retrieve the value of the checkbox from within your JavaScript program up here. I guess I should have did another enter. But you can check one, you can check both of them, check none of them. So that's what checkbox does. Okay. Now we're not going to look at all of these, but color, a widget from which a user can input a color. I don't think I've ever used that in my life, so let's try that. It's always fun trying new things. Sometimes it works for me, sometimes it doesn't. I don't get upset about it if it doesn't work. Input type equals to color. You don't need the ID if you're not going to access it through programming. you go. So the question becomes, what does it return when you choose something? ID equals the color. Okay, I'm gonna go over W3 schools. It's got a learn JavaScript down here, so if you click that, this is where all the different items are, and you'll see they even have a JavaScript form. So I wonder if they'll have color here. They might not. They might keep them pretty simple. Yeah, let me search. Input color. I don't think that's quite what I meant. It's how to create a color picker. But then choose it. How do you retrieve it from its code? Probably can't guess this, but let's see. Okay, color 1 equals to document dot get element by ID, and then the color dot value. Alert color 1. B6. Oh, that sure looks familiar. There is a web pages with these. Encyclopediya. Where all of them have their own numbers, but I don't know I don't remember what those numbers pertain to. They're not RGB, I don't think. That'd be 9 number. Oh, the hex. Maybe they're the hex. F7. F7. C58E. C58E. Yeah, sure enough. So that's the hex value you see right here. Now, how you translate that over to the red, green, blue, I don't know, but you don't need to. Because you can, through JavaScript, you could then assign this to change the color of something. So like if you want to change the background color, for example, of your page, then you could do that. Okay. Back to here. Now you notice I've never used the color widget. I'm not sure where I would use it. I've never used that in my life. That doesn't matter in terms of learning. You know, if you go into computer science, you need to have a spirit of investigation. That you just don't want to learn the very bare minimum, but you're willing to experiment. You know, what does this do? Is this, you know? I did that in class yesterday, and I think it was SQL. I just did pick things I had never done before. Some of them worked, some of them didn't. Got to be willing to experiment. You also got to be willing to learn. Taught computers for full time for the last 3 years now. I've been teaching them for the last 15 years, but I teach like 2 or 3 classes a semester. Taught math full time. Well, math, pretty much what I taught 30 years ago, 25 years ago, is what I'm teaching now. Doesn't change a whole lot. I don't have to really expand my knowledge. The factoring doesn't change same way it was 200 years ago. Computers are constantly changing. Um, you got to be willing to adapt. You got to be willing to learn yourself. That means you take new classes. You come to Cali, you take classes. You go to Wichita State, you take classes. Perhaps you learn on your own. There's a website called Udemy, if I'm saying it right, udemy.com. You should be going out there to learn new topics over the years. You do not want to be in computer science and have that technology pass your own educational level. Saw that at Coke. Had people that programmed in COBOL, COBOL, and it's a programming language from the 60s, really. And and you may have heard me tell this story, some of you have. But when Windows first came out, I thought, well, this is kind of cool. I can play solitaire while my mainframe process is running. And then Visual Basic 1.0 came out, and I spent $100 to go down and buy it out of my own money because I was excited about Windows. And I started programming in it. I started implementing those at work, and I self-learned the material and kept learning. Now, other people that are COBOL programs, they didn't want to learn anything new. It's hard to learn something new. It's time consuming. When you get home, you want to have fun. You want to go watch TV, play video games, whatever. And so they didn't increase their own knowledge. It was probably a year after that, maybe 6 months. Coke fired 40 of those mainframe programmers because the technology had started moving forward into Windows and so forth, and they didn't need all those mainframe programmers. Now here you had 40 people that had not kept their learning, and when they went out to the job market, I'm sure some of them found jobs, but a lot of them couldn't. So have to keep advancing your knowledge. Again, it doesn't have to be paid training through a college. It can be self-learning even. Go down to Barnes & Noble. Assuming you can still go down there. I'm not sure if they're open with the pandemic. Probably are now. I know Half Price Books is in Wichita. So if you want to find good computer books, go down there for cheap. And so you go down there, get a book on a topic, and just start learning on your own. Yeah, I cannot emphasize that enough. I've seen it over and over. People think, well, I just want to do this until for the next 30, 40 years so I retire. It's going to pass you by. Date. That widget brings up a date. I should be putting these up at top so I don't have to keep scrolling down. ID equals the date. And click here. Pops up the standard calendar. You can click here. Change it to different year. Choose a month. Choose a date. And then it changes that. And of course, we'll be able to access that date through code. And date, time, local. Go select calendar, date, and time. I don't really know the difference between those two. Oh, time. This puts time on it. Okay. Wake up. Input box used for email addresses. You're going to find that probably doesn't look a whole lot different than some of this. And input type equals to email. Later on, we'll talk about code-wise, what does this mean to choose this type of input. As you see, by default, if I don't put that add in there, it still takes it. But if I put my mouse over it, see how it says please include an @ in the email address. Test is missing an @ symbol, so it gives them a little bit more user friendly. And we'll see how to do it via code too. Okay, file. Now this one's interesting. I have never programmed a JavaScript program with a file. I'm not sure how you do it, to be honest. It's more for like if you're uploading it to submit it to a server or something. Input type equals to file. ID equals the file. If you ever filled out a job application online, it'll ask you to upload files. Well, how they retrieve that is with this widget right here. So choose file, and then I choose let's see, C drive, my HTML, fall 2000, brick. Now that hasn't actually uploaded it because with his processing needs to go on behind the scenes, but that's what a file is. Hidden controls hidden from the user. Now I'm out saying, well, that's just plain stupid. Input type equals to hidden. ID equals to the file or the hidden. Refresh this. Nothing there. If I right click on this, view page source, I can see it hidden here. We're going to see coding wise. Sometimes you want to pass information, but you don't want it to appear on the screen. That's one use of that. Image. No, we didn't look at image. Type equals to image. I'm guessing it has a source. Source is equal to. Where have I saved this at? Let's see. Not there. Oh yeah. Okay. Looking for my standard Pink Panther. Okay. So then, Pink Panther .png. I'm not sure if I've ever used this, so that's curious. But now it's something I can actually click. I'm not sure why it came in bigger, but it's like a button. Now I could do the image tag and kind of do something similar, but okay. Month widget from user can select the calendar month. Number, okay, number. Spin box from which number user can input that. Number. Now in front you'd have something like this. Now these can be very annoying. Although we're going to see there's parameters you can set on these, like min and max, I believe. Because if I use this, it'll take me quite a while to get to my age. Now the good part of it is by default on these, if I try to type in a number, it'll allow me. So if I'm 3,333 years old, then it'll let me put that in there. It's curious the inner cleared it out, but now you can lock that down so they can't do that. So there's different properties with these. Password, that's a box where you have asterisks when you type. Radio, radio option button that can be clicked by the user. Let's look at that. Oops. Input type equals to radio. ID equals R1. R2. Input type equals to radio. ID equals R2. I got that. Now, if I click there and I click here, see how they have both are selected. Come over here, JavaScript, radio. Show you one already set up. Okay, so here we got our radio and male, then male here. Name is gender, name is gender, name is gender. So if I select one, it unselects the other. Now let me change this one to say gender 2. Other. See how you can select that? So what connects it together is the name. So by having those the same, then that's what you how you do that. I couldn't remember the attribute, that's why I had to come out over here and look. But they have to be grouped together in that manner. Down here, if I want another age range, well, you can put an input type equals to radio, ID equals to age 4, name is equal to, as long as I make it age, it'll be connected to the other ones. Now the label is what gets attached to it. So when you say the 4, that attaches it to that ID. So this will attach it to that, and it'll look to the side like that. The alternative to that is that you put like that here. Let's compare the two. Now my eyes aren't good enough to notice much difference there, but if you're more of the graphic design type person, then you may be concerned about how that looks. Of course, I didn't put spaces there. I don't usually use the label, but it is an option. Now, by the way, if you're trying to design a web form, this is a fantastic resource. Just come out here, W3 Schools. You type in JavaScript and like a input, maybe file. You may have to play with that a little bit. Here's a file upload. So if you're trying to figure out the different options for that, that doesn't look good. Maybe it is. Okay, so this shows you how to do the file, and then if you want to figure out how to access it through JavaScript, this appears to be how you do it. Document.get element might be my file, and I didn't do a dot value like I have in the past, and that assigns it. And then from here, you'd want to send it to your server program. So there, I can pick a file. Pick my standard Pink Panther. Try to disable the file upload. I'm gonna disable that. So anyway. Range slider for you're just going to select a numeric value within defined range. Reset. Reset button resets everything on the form. That's kind of nice. It's not usually up at the top. Then can be. Okay, put a bunch of stuff in here. Okay, so then I click the reset, and it just resets everything. Search. I've never used a search. I'm not sure what it is. Things I don't use on a regular basis, I'll look it up, but I still won't remember it. Input search. Okay, HTML input type search. Search Google. Oh, okay. And so it'll. So what would be different than that simple text passing it to that PHP program? So this is talking about the PHP program receives it. I have no clue what that's used for. I mean, that's nice to say that, but you could also pass in just the text. Interesting. Let's see. Submit. Use submit button for processing. Telephone, cell phone numbers, text entries. Looked at time. Widget. Input box for URLs. And then week. And by the way, URL I think is just a text box, but it then checks make sure you put all the different components on it that's necessary. And week value. Okay, so it talks about the field labels here. We do a label, and you say for, and then that's attached to name. Like here, right below it is ID name, and that's what attaches those. And it looks like this. Default values. This is kind of nice. If you're trying to debug something, you're getting tired of typing those numbers in over and over. Like I'm trying to do my add option down here. There they are. Value equals 5. I don't know if any quotes are on that. Probably do. And down here, I'll put value equals 7. Save that. See how it puts 5 and 7 there automatically. So you don't have to keep typing the numbers in. So if you're running this 30 times trying to figure it out and you're getting tired of coming here and typing 5 and typing 7, have the value for them as default. Let's see. There's your placeholders, which is like a hint. So if you have a problem for the name, the hint would say first and last name. Did I do that wrong? Placeholder. Maybe the value. There it goes. See how it says second number? So then when they type that. I guess you can't get it to, I thought if we put the mouse over it, it would still say it, but I guess not. Let's see, default value. I guess shows you an example. And again, these are all different items I want you to consider for your order form, so people know what to type in. Selection list with possible values for the data field. Let's show that quickly. Maybe. There it goes. Control F, select. Okay, this is our drop down. See how it populates that? And how you do that is you have a select right here, give it a name, like cars, and that then you can tie to this label. And then within the select, of course, there's a closing select down here, but within the select and the closing select, you have options. And so I could type other options in here. Option value equals Pinto. And now if I run that, I do the drop down, you see Pinto here. There was one page we went and looked at, that tape measure, where they had tons of what appeared to be words in there. And probably it had a lot of these drop downs so they could then choose. You know, if you have a drop down for the state, for example, you're going to have 50 options here. So when you look at this, the source code behind it, I don't know if I can see the source code. I guess not. View page source. No, that doesn't work. But if I were to look at source code, I would see all this in there. Okay. Let's select. Goes in a lot more than what we're going to go to right now. Here's option groups, where you can have your selection, your drop down, broken into groups. And if you want to read more about that, you can. I'll put the link out there for it. Radio buttons we talked about. Check boxes, nothing exciting. I showed you a couple of those. Text area, I didn't create one of those, but you just do your text area, give it a name or ID, and slash text area. And then they can put in whatever they want here on the form, and if you want it to default, you can put some default text in there. Spinner control, I showed some of these. Notice how there's some different options though. Value equals 1, default. It increases by 1, or you can have increase by 5. Your minimum, maximum. So they can't put over so much. So this really locks it down. If you ask them to input their age, they can't put 333. Let's see. There's a range slider. Some of this we're going to talk about later on. Some of it's not that important. Okay. Now what I want you to do is, again, I want you to create a form. JavaScript Web Form. And create it for an ordering something. It's pretty vague, but I mean it to be that vague. You choose whether it's candle or comic book or what. And the part that you don't need to worry about is where the book talks about running a program. Like this is running a program called action_page.php. You don't need to worry about that. Now I don't know what directory it's under, so I probably won't get this right. But especially if I put 2 slashes in there. This is a program that it runs. And I probably can't run it direct like that. Assuming I don't crash the computer here. By the way, notice up here what it's passing. It's putting a question mark, F name equals John, and last name equals Doe. That's what we're talking about, where you can tack that information onto the URL at the end. Now, if you got this, it used to be the UPS and so forth, FedEx worked off of these. And then you could take the URL and tack on your tracking number at the end, and then it'd find it. I don't know if they still work that way. They probably have to have a tracking number to do it. But I wrote some programs where I would then change this to whatever I wanted. Like if I change this manually without going to the form and pressed enter, it would now pass in David and Hayes to their program running on the server. And all their program does is come back and prints out the results. And it could be I could even tack more on here. Maybe their program is so generic, I could do and age equals 55. And it worked just fine. I may have to try that next week where I put this into an HTML file and see if we can run this off of our local. So this would be our URL that we process. But I'm out of time. The project will be to create a web form. You don't have to put any JavaScript behind it. We're going to get back to JavaScript next week. But this is just to get comfortable with building a form. And it's a form to order something, as I indicated. Questions, anything? No, just whatever's appropriate for whatever you're ordering. Like if I was selling comic books online, I'd want to click their name, maybe first name, last name, address, city, state, zip, shipping method. Do you want it next day, standard shipping, insurance? That'd be like a checkbox. Um, Quantity. It doesn't have to be perfect what I'm looking for. I just want you to think what would be logical things for me to put on it. What other questions?